Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Straight Tech here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Google 6 Pro that was released about a month ago, and I've been using it since it first came out, and it has some good things and bad things to say about this phone. So I'm going to divide this video into three categories. The first one is going to be talking about the screen. The second one is going to be talking about the battery, and the third one is going to be talking about the camera. So let's get into it. But before we get started, I just want to say I'm sorry that I haven't posted any videos for the past 2 or 3 weeks constantly. I've just been fighting a cold and I'm trying to get better, so if you guys hear my voice kind of raspy, that's where it's coming from. Now with that out the way, make sure you guys like and subscribe to my channel before we continue this video. Now let's get into it. So let's talk about the screen. This is one of Pixel's biggest leap when it comes to releasing a phone. Now when it came to the other previous Pixel phones being released, they've always had somewhat of decent hardware. They were more of a software company, but this year they went all flagship. So this is going to be a 6.7 inch LTPO Quad HD 120 Hz display. So they're hanging with the big boys now. Every other big manufacturer is doing this. Apple's doing this, Samsung's doing this, OnePlus is doing this. So like I said, finally it took a while for Google to step up the game and try to keep up with the bigger flagships of today's standards. It does have minimal bezels all around the phone, which is a good thing. It does look like a flagship phone in my point of view. Now, this phone does come with a curved display. This could be a good thing or a bad thing to most people. For me, I'm okay with it. I'm not the biggest fan, nor do I hate it. But I think the only thing that bothers me about the curved display is that it is really hard to find a good screen protector for this phone. I'm more of a fan of a tempered glass protector that goes on a flat screen, which is a lot more easier to install, and it just feels more nicer when you're using the phone to scroll through social media. But since this one requires a film, I will put the link down in the description below because I actually did a video on that. But like I said, when you put a film, you kind of do feel a little bit of a drag when you slide your finger up and down the phone. It's not the biggest deal breaker in the world, but just to let you know out there that that's one of the main things why I don't like curved displays. But overall, it is a very, very nice display. It gets pretty bright outdoors. I would say the only thing that kind of bugs me is that for some reason throughout the day I would have my screen brightness around 40, maybe 50% at the highest on my old iPhone, but I feel like with the Pixel 6 Pro I have it around 70 or 80 all throughout the day. It does get pretty bright when it gets to 100%, but when you're 50% on the display brightness, it doesn't feel too bright for some reason. I don't know, it's kind of weird. On the other side, when it comes to dimming and how low the brightness gets, it's very good. At night, if you're trying to read through social media, I think this is one of the best phones to be looking at when you're laying down in your bed. It has this mode called extra dim, so it comes with a little toggle right there and it makes the phone way more dimmer. I'm not sure how many nits it goes down to, but it gets very, very low at night to the point where I kind of have to squint a little bit just to read what I'm looking at, just because it gets so dark. But overall, I think that's a good thing. I like that a lot, and that's okay in my book. Another thing is that this phone comes with Victus glass in the front and the back, so it makes it more durable and makes it more harder for it to break if you do tend to drop this phone. Now, the only thing about this is that it does get scratched very easily. After only having the phone for 2 days, I already had macro scratches on top of the phone and at the bottom of the phone as well. It's kind of weird just because I've only had the phone at that time when I recorded it for 2 days. Getting scratches right away, it's not the best thing, which is what made me get a screen protector. Okay, since we're already talking about the screen, let's talk about the fingerprint scanner. It is getting better. I'm going to say that right now. It is getting a lot better since I first got it, when I first unboxed it. In the beginning, it was pretty slow and pretty inaccurate. Now, for me, I have done all the little shortcuts. I have registered my fingerprint 2 or 3 times already, and it did kind of improve how fast it opens the phone and how accurate it captures my fingerprint, but it's still not the fastest out there compared to other manufacturers that have been doing this for years already. So they did release an update and it did improve the fingerprint scanner just by a little bit. It did improve the accuracy of it, and it did improve the speed of it. But overall, the fingerprint scanner is improving little by little, so I give them that. Now let's talk about the battery. So I've read a lot, I've seen a lot of videos, people talking about the battery is not good on this phone, the battery is good on other people's phones, back and forth, back and forth. You can't really seem to find the common ground on this phone when it comes to battery. Now, for me personally, this is me personally, okay? This is not going to be based off nobody else's usage. This is based off my usage, me being on YouTube a lot, me being on social media, me scrolling through Google's feed all the time. And for me personally, with 5G on all day, I'm getting around 4.5 hours of screen on time, which is not the best for me. Like I said, this is with 5G on, getting home around 5-6 o'clock, and just being on Wi-Fi for the last 3 hours of the day before I go to sleep. So like I said, I'm getting 4.5 at best hours of screen on time on this phone, which is not the best for me. 4.5 is not the best for me. I feel like I kind of have to think about how I want to use this phone throughout the day, just because I don't want to kill it, because I could kill this phone really quickly. That's with 5G on. Now I have another thing to say. I've also tried this phone on for a week or so with just LTE on. LTE, no 5G at all. So with LTE, I was getting way better battery life. I was getting around 6 hours of screen on time, which is okay in my books. That's enough for me to get me throughout the day without worrying about charging the phone at all. So for 2 weeks, I tried it with 5G, and for another 2 weeks, I tried it with LTE. And the thing is that I do not see the difference in speed. They both feel the same because I have T-Mobile, so I have sub-6 5G. So sub-6 5G and LTE are super close when it comes to speed. I don't feel the difference when I'm using either of them. I still feel comfortable using LTE just because we were used to that once upon a time before 5G came out. So I think we'll be okay with LTE still to this day. So that is the only thing I have to say about the battery. Now, like I said, this is Google's first year with the Tensor chip that they made. Of course, it's going to get better throughout the years. I do give them credit for actually finally starting their own chip to process their phones. But I feel maybe with another software update, or maybe even next year's Pixel 7 Pro is going to have better battery life than this. So something that does bug me just because it does have a 5,000 milliamp battery, and that is a huge battery when you think about it. Any phone that has 5,000 milliamp, you're going to expect it to last a day or two. That's just expectations nowadays. But since this phone does come with a 5,000 milliamp battery and doesn't last me more than 5 hours with 5G on, that's kind of a problem. So like I said, that's my opinion. It will go both ways. As of for now, I'm just going to keep it on LTE. It doesn't bother me when it comes to the speeds because it's still fast. It has a 120 Hz display, so it's still going to feel very smooth at the end of the day. Now let's talk about these cameras. And let me just say off the bat, these cameras are probably the best cameras I've ever used on a phone. So when it comes to other phones like Samsung and Apple, it all depends on your preference. It all depends how you like the colors on what each phone manufacturer produces. Every manufacturer likes to create their own type of after processing that appeals to a certain crowd, you know. And for me personally, I like the way Google takes photos. So with that being said, I feel like this phone is good if you have kids in your life. I swear, I'm not going to repeat it again. Actually, I'm going to repeat it again. If you have kids in your life that don't tend to stay still when you're trying to take a photo, I feel like Google takes the best pictures when it comes to that. I have a lot of pictures that I'm going to be posting out for you guys to see. And on Google Photos, it also has this icon on top of the photo called face blur. Now, if their main camera wasn't able to capture your kids or just in general a face that came out blurry, it actually uses the ultra wide to clear that face even more. So basically it's using two lenses at the same time to get a clear and better picture on a face that first came out blurry, but then made it a lot more clear for you to see. So like I said, when it comes to kids, I feel like that's one of the best things you can get. I've taken a lot of photos of my son running back and forth, you know, moving his head left and right and trying to get a good photo. And I feel like Google Pixel 6 Pro does a good job capturing kids in action. Now, when it comes to other things, I feel like any phone takes good pictures, in my opinion. It doesn't really matter if it's a still photo, Samsung, Apple, Google, OnePlus. I feel like they all take good photos. That's not really hard. Any phone could do that. I feel like for me, the more challenging moments are when, like I said, your kid is in motion, you're trying to catch him in his play moments. For me personally, that fits my lifestyle a lot better. Now, if you're somebody without kids, I feel like it's a lot more easier for you to choose one of the other phones. If you do have kids in your life, I feel like this phone is probably perfect for you. And when it comes to video recording capabilities, I feel like Google has really improved and stepped up their game. Now, they're not as good as Apple, because no one is, but I feel like they're right behind Samsung and probably OnePlus. But you can see that bump up that Google is trying to make. They're trying to make that flagship phone that anybody could use, that would appeal to most people out there. Like I said, it takes one of the best photos out there. It takes pretty good video recordings, and I like it, and I'm going to continue to be using it a lot more. Also, it has a 4x optical telephoto lens. Now, for me, I kind of don't use that. For me personally, I'm not really catching things in the wild. I'm not out in the forest preserve taking pictures of plants or animals up close. That's just not me. So I feel like for me to be using a telephoto lens, it has to be a very specific type of area or environment where I'm going to be actually be using it. So now I know, in my opinion, for feature phones, I'm not really going to be needing a telephoto lens. The ultra wide, for me, it does come in handy. I actually do use that. So for me, the main thing I do use is the main camera and the ultra wide camera. So those are the two main ones that I use. The telephoto lens is cool. It does come in handy sometimes for me. But like I said, I don't feel like I have been using it a lot since I've had this phone for the past month. Maybe I will use it in the future, maybe when summer comes, because right now it's winter time in Chicago. But maybe once the summer comes, I'll probably be using it a lot more. But as of right now, I'm not really using the telephoto lens at all. Even though it is really good, I admit that. It is really good. And I would recommend that to anybody who does use telephoto lens on their phones. For Google actually trying to start something this year, the 4x optical zoom, I think, is good enough for most people. So that's been it. Sorry it took me so long to do a video on this. I just been fighting a cold. Right now I'm actually kind of getting better, so if I have a raspy throat, forgive me on that part. So that's been my review for the Google Pixel 6 Pro. Now, is it for most people? It can be. Depends on your preference. If you want a good screen and good batteries, this is probably it's going to be for you. But if you want a phone with a better battery life, then you're probably gonna have to look at Apple or maybe Samsung. But overall, an overall package, Google is trying to deliver a flagship phone. I feel like they did deliver. I feel like with all the hype going around this phone, I feel like it did deliver when it came to everything, except for the battery. But in general, I feel like it did a pretty good job. And I know just from going based off this, next year's Google Pixel 7 Pro is gonna be as good and probably better. And that's been my review on the Google Pixel 6 Pro. Before you guys leave, make sure you guys like and subscribe to my channel. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.